Most people think the cold kills you by freezing your body. It doesn't. More often, it kills your mind first. Picture yourself standing in an endless field of snow. The wind slices through your skin. Every breath disappears into the air before you can even see it. Your fingers no longer feel like they're part of your body. Sunset is still hours away. At that moment, you believe in only one thing: fire. But fire was never the hero we imagine it to be. It was hungry. Every flame demanded fuel. Every glowing ember consumed another branch. And wood was never endless. For our ancestors, winter wasn't simply about finding warmth. It was about feeding an endless fire before it swallowed everything around them. Archaeologists have discovered entire landscapes stripped bare around ancient settlements. Not because early humans wanted to conquer nature, but because survival had a price. Every freezing night meant more trees cut down. Every colder season pushed people farther into dangerous forests in search of fuel. Then the cycle became impossible to escape. The colder it got, the more fuel they needed. The more fuel they needed, the farther they had to travel. And the farther they traveled, the more people never came home. Today, firewood is something we associate with camping trips and cozy cabins. Back then, every stick represented another hour of life. Even animal dung became valuable, dried carefully under the sun. It burned slowly enough to keep families alive across the treeless grasslands and frozen plateaus where wood simply didn't exist. Fire had no dignity. Neither did survival. Winter attacked from another direction as well. Body fat. Modern society treats fat as something to lose. For prehistoric humans, it was a savings account filled with calories, insulation, and time. Every layer lost meant another layer of protection gone. That's why cold weather awakens a hunger that feels almost irrational. Your body isn't weak. It's ancient. Millions of years of evolution taught the human brain one simple lesson: eat now. Winter is coming. The ants, stores who survived, weren't necessarily the strongest. They were often the ones whose bodies stored energy most efficiently. But even that had limits. As your core temperature falls, something strange begins to happen. Your thoughts slow down. Your judgment fades. You become sleepy. Many victims of hypothermia never fought until their final breath. Instead, they simply sat down, convinced that resting for a moment would make everything better. The cold doesn't overpower you. It persuades you. Even stranger is what rescuers still witness today. Some people suffering severe hypothermia begin tearing off their own clothes. It sounds impossible. Yet as the body's temperature regulation collapses, blood vessels suddenly expand, flooding the skin with a false sensation of unbearable heat. The brain receives the wrong message. Instead of feeling cold, you feel like you're burning. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient skeletons lying in the snow with little or no clothing. For generations, people assumed they had been robbed or attacked. Now we know better. Their own brains betrayed them in the final moments of life. That's what makes winter so terrifying. A predator announces itself. A battlefield roars. The cold whispers. It steals your heat 1 degree at a time. Then your clarity, then your will, until the fire dies, and the silence takes everything else. Once the fire went out, our ancestors discovered something unsettling. The longest-lasting source of warmth wasn't wood. It was the human body. Not by burning it, by spending it. Every breath carried precious heat into the frozen air. Every step burned calories that couldn't easily be replaced. Winter turned the body itself into a resource, one that had to be managed with brutal efficiency. The first thing to change was sleep. Today, sleeping alone feels normal, comfortable, even. For most of human history, It was a luxury few could afford. The moment your muscles relaxed, your body began losing heat. Left alone through a freezing night, that slow leak could become a death sentence. So people slept together. Entire families. Entire generations. Bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder beneath layers of fur and woven hides, sharing warmth that no fire could provide alone. In many northern settlements, the arrangement became even more surprising. Humans slept beside livestock. Cattle, sheep, goats, even horses in some regions were brought into or directly beside living quarters during the coldest months. Their body heat warmed the building. Their breath raised the temperature just enough to make survival possible. To modern eyes, it sounds filthy. To prehistoric families, it was the difference between waking up and never waking up again. Warmth was never free. Every degree came with a compromise. Homes changed as well. Archaeologists have long noticed that settlements in colder climates weren't built for beauty. They were built to trap heat. Ceilings sat lower. Doorways became smaller. Windows almost disappeared. Not because ancient builders lacked imagination, but because every extra pocket of air demanded precious fuel to warm it. A cramped shelter that feels suffocating today often outperformed a spacious house when survival was on the line. Even the way we sleep still carries echoes of those winters. When you're cold, frightened, or emotionally overwhelmed, you instinctively curl into a fetal position. Your knees pull toward your chest. Your arms wrap around your body. It feels comforting because it conserves heat. Long before it became a posture of emotional vulnerability, it was a posture of survival. Your body remembers what your mind has forgotten. But winter reshaped more than architecture. It reshaped morality. As food dwindled and fuel disappeared, every community eventually faced the same impossible question. Who gets to survive? In times of abundance, every member of the group mattered. In times of scarcity, every extra mouth meant fewer chances for everyone else. Across different cultures and different centuries, history preserves painful stories. The elderly refusing food so younger generations could live. The injured asking to be left behind rather than slowing the group. The weak quietly disappearing into the snow. These weren't universal traditions, but they reveal a universal truth. Extreme, cold forces choices that comfort never demands. What's perhaps most unsettling is that these decisions were rarely driven by cruelty. They were driven by mathematics. If sacrificing one person meant saving an entire family, survival itself became the moral argument. Evolution has never rewarded kindness by itself. It rewards whatever keeps a population alive long enough to pass on its genes. Over thousands of generations, that pressure shaped the human mind. In moments of catastrophe, some people cry. Others become strangely calm. Not because they care less, because ancient survival circuits temporarily silence emotion in favor of action. Grief can wait. The storm cannot. Winter taught humanity two seemingly contradictory lessons. Hold each other close. And sometimes, let each other go. Every civilization that eventually welcomed spring carried invisible scars from the winters that came before. Because somewhere, long before history was written down, someone made a choice that no human being should ever have to make. And that choice echoed through every generation that followed. When a winter becomes harsh enough, it stops shaping individuals. It starts shaping civilizations. We like to believe that cities were built because of trade, that kingdoms rose because of conquest. But in many parts of the ancient world, civilization was forged by something far quieter. Cold. No family could survive a brutal winter alone forever. Sooner or later, survival demanded cooperation. More people meant more hunters, more hands gathering firewood, more eyes watching the flames through the night. A village wasn't just a place to live. It was a machine built to fight the cold. Everyone had a role. Some hunted, some repaired shelters, some gathered fuel, and someone always watched the fire. Because losing a fire wasn't an inconvenience. It was a catastrophe. Starting a new one could take horse or even days in freezing weather. A single mistake could leave an entire settlement exposed before sunrise. Long before gold became valuable, a living flame was priceless. But as communities grew larger, another problem appeared. Not how to create warmth, how to distribute it. Who received the thickest animal skins? Who slept closest to the fire? Who ate first when food supplies ran low? Those questions slowly transformed into something much bigger. Power. The people who controlled resources gained influence. The people trusted to organize food, fuel, and labor became leaders. Many of humanity's earliest authorities weren't simply the strongest warriors. They were the ones most capable of guiding an entire community through winter. In other words, the cold didn't just shape our shelters. It shaped our governments. Even warfare obeyed the seasons. In warmer regions, battles often revolved around fertile land or access to water. In colder climates, winter itself became a weapon. History is filled with armies that never lost to an enemy. They lost to frozen rivers, starving horses, collapsed supply lines, soldiers who simply failed to wake up after one impossibly cold night. The snow showed no loyalty. It buried conquerors and defenders alike. Generals eventually learned a lesson that nature had been teaching for thousands of years. Sometimes the smartest battle is the one you postpone until spring. Winter also changed the way humans viewed strangers. Imagine living in an endless frozen wilderness. A knock on your door after sunset could mean danger, or it could mean someone whose family would save yours years later. Across many northern cultures, hospitality became more than kindness. Offering a traveler a bowl of hot soup, a place beside the fire, or a corner to sleep wasn't simply generosity. It was an investment in a future where everyone depended on everyone else. Modern evolutionary psychology offers an explanation. ANS didn't become remarkably cooperative because we were naturally peaceful. We became cooperative because cooperation consistently outperformed isolation. Groups that shared resources survived. Groups that refused to work together disappeared. Over thousands of generations, collaboration became one of our greatest evolutionary advantages. Competition never vanished. It simply changed form. The most successful communities weren't those with the strongest individuals. They were the ones whose members trusted one another enough to survive impossible winter's together. And that may be winter's greatest legacy. It didn't change the sun. It didn't change the seasons. It changed the human mind. The food we store, the homes we build, the rules we follow, the societies we create. We often celebrate civilization as humanity's greatest achievement. But step back far enough, and it begins to look less like something we invented, and more like something winter forced us to become. Perhaps the most expensive invention in human history wasn't the wheel. It wasn't metal. It wasn't even written language. It was warmth. Every morning, you wake up and adjust a thermostat without thinking. You step into a heated shower. You wrap yourself in insulated clothing designed by centuries of engineering. Winter has become an inconvenience, not a question of survival. But your body doesn't know that. It still reacts as though the ice age never truly ended. Why do we crave rich, calorie-dense food when the temperature drops? Why do dark winters make us feel more tired, more withdrawn, sometimes even more depressed? Why does a bowl of hot soup feel comforting in a way that cold food never can? Because these aren't modern habits. They're ancient survival programs. Your brain still associates cold with danger. It still associates warmth with safety. And perhaps more importantly, it associates warmth with people. Think about it. When you're anxious, what do? You pull a blanket over your shoulders. You wrap your hands around a hot drink. You lean against someone you trust. Or maybe you simply wish another person were sitting beside you. Psychologists have repeatedly found that physical warmth and emotional warmth are deeply connected inside the human brain. Feeling physically warmer can subtly increase feelings of trust, comfort, and social connection. That connection isn't poetic. It's evolutionary. For hundreds of thousands of years, warmth almost always meant one thing. The fire was still burning. The group was still together. You were safe for one more night. Our language still carries those ancient memories. We describe people as warm. We speak of warm welcomes, warm smiles, warm homes. No one says someone has a high temperature when they make us feel loved. Because warmth was never just about heat. It was about belonging. Yet modern civilization has given us an illusion our ancestors never had. It has convinced us that comfort is normal, that survival is guaranteed, that warmth simply appears when we press a button. But history tells a different story. Our ancestors weren't tougher because they feared less. They were tougher because they had fewer choices. Every winter demanded sacrifice. Every fire consumed precious resources. Every decision carried the weight of life, indeed death. The people who came before us didn't survive because nature was merciful. They survived because they adapted to a world that wasn't. Generation after generation, winter quietly selected those who could cooperate, who could prepare, who could endure. And those lessons became part of us. Not in books, not in monuments, but in our instincts. So perhaps the real story isn't about how humanity conquered the cold. We never did. We simply became better at borrowing warmth from one another. That may be the foundation beneath every civilization we've ever built. Because every heated home, every shared meal, every community, every act of compassion can be traced back to one simple truth. Somewhere in the distant past, our ancestors discovered that no one survives winter alone. And maybe that's the question worth carrying into the modern world. If comfort has made us forget the true cost of warmth, if technology has made us believe we no longer need one another, then when the next great winter arrives, whatever form it takes, will we still remember how to keep each other alive?